Every now and then Runescape adds an update that significantly impacts the game, and in this video I'll talk about an overgrown ice cube that changed the game forever. So whenever you're ready, grab your cup of tea, sit back, relax, and enjoy. If you like my Runescape content and want to stay updated with the recent news, be sure to subscribe. The Arch Glacor was released as part of the Gold Rush Dungeon 3 Glacor Front update on the 31st of August 2021, and is what I believe to be the best designed boss released to date. That is, excusing the release date bugs, of course. Why? Well, it's fun, scales to virtually any level of skilled player, and is the only boss in which you can turn on and off mechanics as you wish. While it is easy to hate because of release day bugs, or the 295s created from the boss's drops being underwhelming and those items required to create those weapons, the frozen core, having terrible drop rates, it is a phenomenal boss. Opinions aside, this boss, much like Elite Dungeon 3, has had a considerable amount of impact on the PvM side of RuneScape. Let's cover what this boss has going for it, but before we do, a word from today's sponsor, Raid. Yup, you saw that coming, didn't you? Raid Shadow Legends. Raid is the ultimate turn-based RPG game to play on the fly with over 600 different heroes to collect, and Raid is about to increase that number with a brand new faction. But let's cover my favorite faction first. The High Elves, which have quite the backstory. Their homeland, Aravia, has been around for thousands of years, and during that time the elves have helped humans form civilization, defeated a huge horde of orcs, and even came out victorious in an eternal war against the Dark Elves. So these elves are more than just fancy looking warriors, but they still indeed look pretty fancy. My favorite elf is Ifos due to his AoE potential, perfect for PvE content. So what about the new faction? Well, that would be the Sylvan Watchers, featuring some truly amazing new champions.
Mommy? Sorry.
Forest Elves, Ents, Druids, and Fays are all part of the heroes you can expect from this faction, and they are truly spectacular. Additionally, a new season of Forge Pass is coming, so do not miss it. If you want a massive head start in Raid, hit the link in the description below or scan the QR code on screen to receive a free epic champion called Vergis, 200,000 silver, 1 ancient shard, an energy refill, and XP boost. These rewards are for new players and can be claimed from the inbox for the next 30 days only. So what does the Arch Glacor have going for it? Well, first of all, learning boss mechanics, something many other low-level bosses do not have going for them. In fact, most low-level bosses are counterintuitive to increasing your PvM skill because they offer nothing of value for you to learn from. The Arch Glacor, on the other hand, teaches you placement, defensives, targeting minions, reaction-based mechanics, and even prayer flicking. The Arch Glacor also happens to be pretty decent money per kill, even if you don't account for the extra money from the Elder Troves. It is also one of the easiest and AFK-able ways of obtaining charms in this game, as you can AFK 0 mechanic Arch Glacor and get 15 charms every single kill, with the majority of those being crimsons and blues at around a rate of 80%. If you get 1 minute kills, including the respawn time at 0 mechanic Arch Glacor, you can get 900 charms per hour, with over 700 of those being crimsons or blues. And that's without using something like a charming potion or triple charm. The Arch Glacor at 0 mechanics also happens to have the best life points per experience out of all of the lower tier bosses excluding Jad, meaning you need to do the least amount of damage per point of common experience out of all the lower tier bosses at the Arch Glacor with 0 mechanics turned on. That being said, if you want to really gain common experience, you should simply train combat normally, like going to Elite Dungeon 3 for trash runs, because that is just way better experience. The Arch Glacor is also a decent source of marks of war. At 0 mechanics, you can get 25 marks per kill, meaning that you only need 40 kills to get your hourly cap, so a kill every 1.5 minutes will be enough to get you your marks of war the entire hour, every single hour. And it really isn't that hard to AFK this boss. Having a tier 80 weapon and some prayer potions or the penance sword is really enough. In fact, you don't even need a tier 80 weapon, but it does mean it's going to be a little bit easier than a tier 70 weapon or lower. If not, you can always AFK this boss with a buddy to take less damage. So the Arch Glacor has a lot going for it, even if you just AFK the 0 mechanic version without really paying too much attention to your screen. Let's proceed by taking a look at bosses of a similar tier in my tier list video compared to the Arch Glacor, because the Arch Glacor with 0 mechanics turned on makes the majority of the bosses on this list in the beginner and easy tier redundant, apart from getting collection logs and a unique drop here and there, like the Steam Battle Staff or Dragon Rider armor. Krillsuit Azeroth, Kriara, Commander Ziliana, General Grador, Giant Mole, Calvite Queen, and the King Black Dragon are virtually a waste of your time to do instead of the Arch Glacor. No, hold on, they're literally a waste of your time instead of doing the Arch Glacor. And yes, those are the 4 main bosses of God Wars Dungeon 1 on the list, and all 4 of them suck for money per hour and even require you to get 40 kill count before you can access them. Now while those 4 bosses suck, the God Wars Dungeon 1 area does have a couple of things going for it, including being able to gather Blood Reavers, using binding contracts for really good money, getting Spiritual Warriors for your personal and Slayer dungeon, some archaeology material spots, and of course getting those abilities like Sacrifice from killing the minions, but the bosses really are not worth doing. Now while the Arch Glacor hasn't made the following bosses completely dead content, I would say that there's little reason to do them over the Arch Glacor in the current game. QBD is better money per kill, but also takes longer and is slightly more difficult, and also requires you to have super anti-fires. I personally don't see why you would do the Chaos Elemental unless you're going for the Revenant Log or collecting Brawling Gloves. Diagonals can be a bit annoying to take down, and while they are better GP per kill than the Arch Glacor, if we aren't including the Elder Trove money, you're going to be more reliant on those rare ring drops to make money here. Corporal Beast is better money per kill than the Arch Glacor, but has quite high defense and can only be properly killed using a spear type weapon, and if I'm being honest, is too annoying to kill for what it's worth. As for Legios, well, you shouldn't even do these if you don't have high level stats, because it's going to take you a long time to even break even profit wise, because you're spending money on Ascension Keystones to kill these bosses, and well, let's just not talk about them. God Wars Dungeon 2 and Barrows are both exceptions because of their money. Barrows is good money per kill due to the Amulet of the Forsaken being so expensive, and God Wars Dungeon 2 gear is heavily tied into invention perks or other upgrades, making it more expensive. Now you could say that God Wars Dungeon 1 is still relevant just like God Wars Dungeon 2 due to items being used for invention, but there are other means of obtaining Zamorak, Saradomin and Arnold components from relics or Mjolnirs. Zamorak components being the most important one to create perks like Impatient 4. So the Arch Glacor is almost always the answer, especially when building a new account. You get some common experience, money, lots of valuable Crimson and Blue charms, your PvM map upgrades thanks to the Marks of War, slowly but surely, but hey, you can even AFK with 0 mechanics turned on, and best of all, you can even turn on mechanics to get better at PvM when you'd like to practice. But what do the Jagex moderators think of this update? Well, let's find out.
Probably a little bit too far for a low level player, because things like no mechanic Arch Glacor was intended to be a PvM learning mechanic and not a
charm farming or
best
money
possible
making
money
or
source.
whatever
best
else.
raw GP and best charm farming of all time. It wasn't intended to be that that method, but the design intention was to outmode older pieces of content and for the new content to be way more profitable and way more worthwhile than older pieces of content. You have to say like, well, no, we want players to play new content, we want players to play good content. So make sure that the new content does outmode and outsurpass those pieces of content. So make sure that players are playing the best piece of content that we're releasing, because Edo God Wars Dungeon, I think, is some of the best content we've released for a long, long time. And
we don't mind that people are going to 3 rather than 2. Like, that's good.
Exactly.
Okay.
Because we're proud of what we've done, right? Like, as you said, we want people to do the new content. We don't mind if the people who were doing God Wars 2 are now doing God Wars 3. That's good. If people are only doing God Wars 3 for the entire game, that's
then it's a little too far.
That actually is, that's not intended. And that's
So, the Arch Glacor wasn't meant to be the answer to everything, which it isn't, but it is the answer for most people building and progressing their accounts to at least the mid-game or early higher levels. Their intention was to make the Arch Glacor more popular than all the content, which it undoubtedly is, and that makes perfect sense from both a developer and player point of view. Because the worst thing for new content, I'm sure we can all agree on, is for all the content to straight up be better. Because when that is the case, the content will simply be dead on arrival and very little people will play it, other than the people getting back the Master Quest Cape, Comp Cape, Reaper title, or whatever other dynamic reward they want back. Apart from that, taking into account all the content when trying to balance new content makes it so much more difficult and time consuming, because you have to account for even more variables than before.
You know, the amount of content in the game increases, and if all of that content is still farmed and viable, then suddenly we have to worry about the balancing of not 5 bosses but 50 bosses.
I think it's just the sheer practicality of upholding 21 years worth of content.
Yeah, exactly.
Just makes it incredibly difficult to design anything in the game. Like, how do you design something that is both wanted by modern players, but also is upholding older pieces of content? So hey, we're going to release a new level 90 pickaxe, but it now requires the pickaxe of Song and Earth, and like a dragon pickaxe and a gilded dragon pickaxe, and also you have to go do like 1,000 hours of lava flow mine. Like
yeah, it gets a little ridiculous.
It just becomes ridiculous at that point.
Some developers like Modraman are of the opinion that content when reaching a certain age needs to be left behind. And while Modraman is talking about the essence of Finality Amulet instead of the Arch Glacor in the clip I'm about to show you, he does go on about old content not needing relevancy.
I disagree with the idea that now every special attack needs to be relevant. I think that ideology needs to go. That's like saying, hey, my Dragon Long is you know, the spec was good back in the day, so it needs to still be good now. No, it doesn't. It doesn't. This is my own personal opinion, but I'm okay with old content dying. And I know we were very careful to when we're designing things, we're like, oh, but Bandos might crash. It's just like, no, this has been out for X amount of years. It's fine to go.
Interestingly, this isn't a black and white design philosophy, as they do want to keep older content relevant sometimes, like the examples mentioned by Mortimbo in the Let's Chat about RuneScape design and balance.
Also, areas where we do this, it's like the Zuk capes require the killing capes, right?
Yes, they do.
So like there are some places where we still do this where it makes sense for the progression. That we did have a conversation where Zuk capes were tradable. We had a conversation where Zuk capes didn't require killing capes as well. You defeated Zuk and you got the cape. But we came to the conclusion that no, we like the idea that this older content, you go through the Elder grind, or the Elder kiln, and the Elder, all the pieces of content. You go through Jad, you go through Harakin, and you go through Zuk. Like it felt a nice piece of progression for that slot, for that cape. And we will uphold those certain things where we think is worthwhile.
And this difference is what I like about Gold Rush Dungeon 3. Each front is unique and thought out so well that I don't think it's a big deal that all the content is left in the dust sometimes after a new update. The Arch Glacor replacing all the content isn't necessarily a bad thing because there's nothing prestigious or special about the content it is replacing apart from perhaps nostalgic value. But what do you think about the Arch Glacor? Do you mind that it replaced all the content and became a meta for a lot of things? Or would you like to see it introduced while also upholding older content? Be sure to let me know down in the comments below. With that being said, we've come to the end of this video. If you enjoyed the video, leave a like down below and maybe even consider subscribing, and I'll catch you guys in the next one. Peace.